Okay, so that's for the homework 3. Let's come back to the lecture. So I will finish the scanning lecture, then we move on to this online password cracking, which is basically online password guessing attack. Remember in the Splunk case study, we showed that one case study where attacker repeatedly try to guess password for root and Bob user, and attacker gets the Bob password correctly. That is like one kind of online password guessing attack. So there are many attacking tools that can help attacker to do this online password guessing attack. So we will introduce one or two of them in this slide. So let's first finish the scanning part. And last time I asked you to install Nessus on your own computer. So then because the installation will take some time, so try to install it probably on the host OS, because on virtual machine maybe it takes longer. And also last time we showed this Nmap script engine. Basically show Nmap script vulnerable, but this vulnerable scan will take a long time because there are so many existing vulnerabilities. So this vulnerable script will try to search through its own big data set and find existing vulnerabilities. So last time when I do the scan, it doesn't finish. So at the beginning of this class, I rerun this Nmap script vulnerable to scan this 2.5 is my Metasploitable Linux machine. So 2.5, so this is Metasploitable Linux. You can see this IP address is 10.0.2.5. Yes. Okay, so because this output is very long, using screen output is not a good idea. You will scroll back to see a lot of text. So I just say redirect, use this bigger sign. In Linux, the command bigger sign is redirect the output for the previous command to the following output. So the output is put in this text file. So now we can see this output. And this is so the Nmap scan. I run it at 1024, and it showed because it's still Nmap, so it will find this is normal Nmap scan. So scan 1000 port. So 977 port are closed. So it shows this port is open, but Nmap vulnerable scan will scan more than just whether this port is open or not. It also finds the software version, the server version that is running on that port. And if this version has a known vulnerability, then Nmap will give you the information about that vulnerability. Like this one, it finds out that TCP21 port is open. It's the service is FTP, and this FTP server is FTP vs FTPD, and it has a known backdoor. Because this version is 2.3.4, so that is FTP server, daemon server running on the Metasploitable Linux. That version, this version has a specific vulnerability, and here showed ID CVE 2011. So basically, this is a vulnerability discovered or vulnerability published in 2011. And this 23. So this CVE number is, you can think that this is the vulnerability ID, because for any existing known vulnerability or critical vulnerabilities, security website, they will publish it and also give a unique ID. CVE like this one, if you want to know what this is, you can copy it and do the search You can search this one. And so CVE is this MITRE. CVE is actually published by NIST, National Institute of Standard. It's called NVD, National Vulnerability Database. So it shows the detail about what is the CVE number. It shows the description. This version of the VSFTPD contains a backdoor which opens a shell on port 62,000, and it showed it's more information. So here are more information about this. And you can also find some other place talk about the detail about this CVE. Like this is exploit database. It also showed what is this exploit database. This one showed how to exploit. So that is this first port. It showed that it also showed the reference. You can go to the reference to find more information about this. So here there are more than one reference. So you can see this is a MITRE CVE database reference for that. And 22 port is open SSH, but this one doesn't give any additional information. So it just means this one, this Nmap scan doesn't find any vulnerability for the SSH server. Telnet, it doesn't find any vulnerability, but Telnet itself is vulnerable because Telnet is a remote login without any encryption. So no one uses Telnet anymore. And this SMTP is email. Remember, port 5 is an email service. So this email service, it shows that it has this vulnerable. It's a vulnerability reference. You can see this is the reference. You can also Google search this, and here showed some explanation of this vulnerability. And you can go to this reference to find what is this vulnerability. Okay, so CVE number is here. And here is this CVE reference. And one service may have multiple vulnerabilities. So one service may have multiple CVE number corresponding to it, because some service, some server, people have discovered multiple different separate vulnerability associated with that service. Like this one, you can see that it has another additional CVE number corresponding to it. This is 53 DNS. This one doesn't have any vulnerability. HTTP, the web service, it has vulnerability that it explained here. And this is a CVE number that you can check. And here are all the reference. So it's very long. Basically, for every discovered port, if it has any known vulnerability, then this Nmap scan will tell you the information. Of course, this scan will take longer time, and also this scan generates the result is pure text. So if you are not expert, maybe it's not easy for you to read this result. And at the end of this scan, it showed that it is finished in 300 seconds. So it took almost 6 minutes to finish this scan. Remember, these two machines, they are in the same virtual line. So their response time should be very, very small. It's like in the local network, you are doing the scanning, you still get using 6 minutes to finish the scan. So this vulnerability scan is useful, but if you are security staff, you don't use it frequently. Normally, you just use normal Nmap scan to scan your internal network to find any open service, any not registered computer going online. But only when you suspect some computer may have vulnerability, or if your employee set up a new computer, then you use Nmap, this vulnerability scan, to scan that computer extensively, because it takes a longer time and it will generate more traffic. And of course, this text, if you are well known, if you know this Linux, then you can do this text search very easily by using grep. For example, if I just use grep, I want to find all the CVE number in this output file. I just use, for example, grep CVE output. Then it will show all the text lines that have this keyword CVE. And then you can see these are the CVE number discovered in this text. For example, the last one, CVE276, and basically is this. So these are the known vulnerability that has been discovered on this on the Metasploitable Linux. If you want to search for this keyword, for example, vulnerable, you can use grep. Then output text. You can see how many lines has this vulnerable text in this file. So you can do all kinds of searching by using this grep command. So grep is very powerful text search command in this Linux terminal environment. Okay, so this is this grep vulnerability scan. Another scan that you can use is Nessus to do this vulnerability scan. As I mentioned before, you can install this. Of course, it's a trial version or free version, basically trial version. You can try it. Then this one, well, the only problem is very annoying. The installation will take a long time to finish. So this software never solved this problem. Anyway, you can install it on any host, on any operating system. Like this one explain how you can install it under Kali Linux. In Kali Linux, you download this Debian, this file, and if you are 32-bit, you download this one. If you're 64-bit, you download this one. And when you do installation, you use this tpkg. So this program is a package installation program in Kali Linux. If you install any applications that already in this Kali Linux App Store, it's very simple. You just use apt-get install and put that software name. But for any external software that is not in the App Store, like the Nessus, when you download the installation file, you use this tpkg-i to install this software. After you finish installation, you use this Nessus D start to start this Nessus daemon service. In Windows machine, once you finish installation of Nessus D is already started in the background, just like a Splunk D. So Nessus software and Splunk software, their running style is very similar. Once you finish installation, their daemon server is running in the background, and they provide this graphical user interface through browser. So their usage is very similar. Rely on web browser for graphical user interface. So it's, in that sense, it's almost the same as a Splunk. the software delivery mode. And when you access Nessus, if you install it on your own local machine, you use your browser to connect to this local host 8834. So that's a default port for the Nessus D is listening. Nessus D is like web server, but it's not listening on the normal port 80 or port 443, because it doesn't want to conflict with existing web service on your computer. So this is the default port for the Nessus D. Remember in Splunk D is listening on the default port is 8000. So if you have installed both of them on your computer, then both daemon is running in the background. Remote access is that you put in the IP address, then put in this 8834, then you can access the Nessus D. So if I use the local host 8000, then I'm connecting to the Splunk D running on my computer in the background. But if I connect to local host 8834, I have already installed Nessus Essential. Then I'm connecting to this Nessus Essential software, basically Nessus D running on my background. So you can see both running mode is very similar to each other. This one shows not secure because certificate is not valid. Of course, I didn't pay any fee to buy the certificate. So this Nessus D or the Splunk D, they don't have any valid certificate. So this is normal. You create a username and password during your installation, just like a Splunk. Then that is an administrator username and password. So this is Nessus interface, and you can see my scan basically shows what existing scan or scan policy you have defined before. So I haven't started using it, so it is empty here. So let me go on. Again, the pros and cons when a software rely on web browser-based graphic user interface for remote access. The advantage is that a user can do remote access using the software from anywhere without installing any client-side program. Disadvantage is that the graphic user interface is limited by the browser. So it cannot be very fancy or very dynamic. If you generate the user interface by your own program, you can generate a very dynamic interface, and could also suffer the same web-based attack because it's running as if as a web server. Now here is a YouTube video on Nessus. And in Linux, you need to use Nessus D start this service. On my host, I just use this. Remember first time when you connect, you may have this warning by the browser because the certificate is not valid. In the installation, you need to provide this activation code. Remember, you can put in your email address to get the activation code very quickly. The initialization will take a long time. For some students, it could take up to 40 minutes if their computer is old, if they run it in virtual machine. Okay, so Nessus, so this is the interface. So if you want to do scan, basically this Nessus is software, security software. The main function is this scan. So here is resource policy. Oh, when basically you, let me see if there is nothing. Create a new scan. So you can create a new scan. Then it showed all the existing scanning methods that's provided by Nessus. So Nessus, the main function for Nessus is to do all kinds of scanning. You can see this basic network scan, which is where I'm going to demonstrate this basic networking scan. But it has a lot of other scan, like malware scan. Like you want to find any, if any of your company's computer has been infected by malware, you can run this malware scan, because if your computer is compromised by a specific malware, the malware may create either some backdoor or may respond to certain connections by attacker. So this malware scan will try to scanning traffic specifically to those to get the response. Then it will know that, well, your computer has been compromised by which malware. So that this is a mobile device scan. So if your home has some mobile device, you can use this to scan your mobile device to try to find known vulnerability for your mobile device. However, this one showed upgrade. It just means for the current trial version, we don't have this module. So we cannot run this module. Only when you buy the software, you can run this module. This is this Spectre and Meltdown scan. So find any of your company's computer has this vulnerability to Spectre and Meltdown. So here are all web application tests. So try to scan web server to find any web vulnerabilities. Because web vulnerability is very unique from other service vulnerability. So that one's focused on web. This is advanced scan, and you can configure, write your own rule to start the scan. This basic network scan is basically like the Nmap when you do this vulnerability script scanning. And here is more other scan, but they all need you to buy the software in order to run them. This is they belong to this compliance. Try to see whether your network has been configured in compliance with certain law or rules or policies. Okay, so we only try this basic network scan. You click that and see, so this new scan, basic network scan. So you can create a name. It's like a project name. So we will just create a name. You can create a description in and the folder by default it will put in the MyScan. So MyScan folder will have all the history of your scan information. Then it shows target. What target you want to do the scan? Because this is extensive scan, so I will focus on only one IP address. Oh, shoot, I cannot demonstrate here. I cannot scan my own virtual machine because right now, all my virtual machines, they are in network mode. But Nessus, right now, I installed it on my host OS. Host OS and network, they are separate. They cannot see each other. So I cannot put in this one. If you are at home, you can configure your virtual machine to be in bridge adapter mode. For example, configure your Metasploitable Linux in bridge adapter mode. Then you can scan from your host OS to the Metasploitable Linux VM. I can only do this when I go back home to after I change the network mode of this to bridge adapter mode. Otherwise, if I want to do this, I need to install Nexus in my virtual machine, because only virtual machine can see the other virtual machine. So I cannot demonstrate here. So basically, if you can reach this virtual machine, you put this virtual machine's IP address there, then you can save to launch further, or you can directly launch this scan. Then it will start scanning. This scan is just like Nmap, this vulnerability script scan. It will take a long time. It will take 6 minutes, 7 minutes to 10 minutes to finish the scanning. But right now, you can see this running has finished because it doesn't find the target. So if you see this result, you can see the result is complete, but vulnerability is 0, host is 0 because no host is available. So let's see. Nexus gives you a very nice interface. So once you finish the scan, it will show vulnerability. Click this, it will show all the vulnerability here. And I think I still need to install Nexus on my VM in order to demonstrate in the classroom. It will show very nice figure. I should maybe demonstrate this using this video. I think maybe some online lecture, they have this screenshot I can directly use. Well, this one. Okay, so this one showed that it's scan metasploitable with Nexus. You click this scan to create a new scan. You select the basic network scan and put in the IP address of the target metasploitable Linux IP address here. If you install the Nexus on your host machine, you can still do it, but only in your home, not in the UCF campus network, because in campus, we cannot use bridge adapter mode for your VM. If your VM using bridge adapter network mode, your VM will never be able to get IP address. The UCF Wi-Fi router, they will not allocate IP address to the virtual machine. So once you put metasploitable Linux IP address here, you click this scan. It will start running, and it will. Well, this one, so it takes 3 to 5 minutes. Actually, it's longer than that. Probably 6 minutes to 10 minutes to finish the scanning. And when you click this finished completed scan, because you may have multiple scan results, so click this one, you finish the scan, it will show this graph. It will show that this bar showed that well, the figure is not clear. 5 red means the 5 critical vulnerabilities. So this bar chart showed critical vulnerability represented by the red color. Orange represent the high risk vulnerability. This yellow represent low risk vulnerability, and green just means your computer exposed some information to remote user. The blue will show all the other information that your computer may display to the user. They are not critical, they are not important, but your computer shows those information to remote user. So here it shows the 5 critical vulnerability. Actually, Metasploitable 2 has more than 5 critical vulnerability. But every time when you use Nexus to scan, you may get slightly different results. So for this time scan, you may find maybe 8 critical vulnerability. Next time when you do the scan, you may find maybe 6 critical vulnerability. So because it sends a large amount of traffic, some of those traffic will be lost in the transmission, or your metasploitable Linux don't have the resource to respond quickly. So some of those scans will not find the vulnerability, so it will not show up. And you can click this vulnerability tab. You will be able to see this critical vulnerability red, then this high risk vulnerability here. So all the critical vulnerability just means they can make your computer to be totally compromised by the remote user. Remote user will gain root access to your computer for this critical vulnerability. Actually, Metasploitable 2 has more than 5 critical vulnerabilities. Here, this screenshot only showed 5, but there are more than 5. Well, maybe I should copy this. Detailed. Okay, I will update my slide so you can see this this link. Well, this is a computersecurity.student.com. It's like a lessons. So probably this is a good resource to learn other things. So you may go to this website to learn some other lessons, not just this lesson. But it seems they have very detailed screenshot and step-by-step operation, so you can follow it by yourself. So if you click any of those, so here showed those entry, and if you click any of this, for example, if you click the first one, well, this is a rogue shell backdoor detection. This is so this page shows that if you click this one, the Nexus will show for this critical vulnerability, what's the description, what's the solution, and what's the CVE number. CVE number will show up here for that particular vulnerability. It will also show that whether it can be compromised by which kind of attacking tools. So if the attacker uses, they will know what kind of attacking tool they can use to compromise that particular vulnerability. So it's very detailed information that you can see from here. I'm sorry I cannot demonstrate in class because for this network setup, my host OS is not in the same LAN network as a virtual machine, so I cannot demonstrate that. Any questions for this Nexus? So we test the basic network scan. If you install Nexus on your host OS, your VM are in bridge adapter mode, then you can scan your VM. But in network mode, you cannot scan. The best target is a metasploitable VM because it has so many critical vulnerability that you can see the difference there. Of course, you can scan your other virtual machine, but they may not have any critical vulnerability. Here, just say you can use this to demonstrate how you can use these tools. Okay, so that's the scanning. Let me save this. The next topic is this online password cracking. So after attacker do reconnaissance and scanning, especially after scanning, they know what service is running on the remote target. They also know whether the target is vulnerable, is potentially vulnerable or not by using this vulnerability scan. Then they can do attack. But before even if they don't discover any critical vulnerability on the target, they can still try a very simple attack technique, which is online password cracking. Because online password cracking doesn't need any vulnerability on the remote target, remote service. And also it doesn't need any attacking skill from attacker. Attackers simply use online password cracking software, and they can repeatedly try different passwords on the service. So we first needed to prepare the target, because online password cracking is like attacker use a dictionary list with potential password and try those passwords. So we need to create an account that has one of those vulnerable passwords. So we need to create an account. For example, if we use this Windows VM as a target, even though all the Windows VM, they don't have any vulnerability, they are not vulnerable. But if they allow like remote desktop connection, then attacker can try remote desktop connections, online password attack. So let's first create a vulnerable account on this Windows VM. Remember, all the Windows VM, they have the default username, i.e. user, and password is this one. So this one is actually a vulnerable password because it is known for attacker. It is actually contained in the dictionary list. So we first create an account, for example, create this account, give it a simple password. So the online password cracking can be successful. For example, we can use this ABC123 as a password. So you first go to, like, suppose I'm using Windows 10 as the example. I create I go to this control panel and user account. You can add someone else to this PC. For Windows 7, you can basically add a user account. For Windows 10, adding a new account is a little bit complicated, but what's this? Because it always asks for Microsoft account. So username, so like CIS6395, and enter password like ABC123. ABC123. You can see whether you typed in. Oh, shoot. Windows 10 has asked a lot of such things. But for the other Windows, it's easier. You don't need to answer these questions. Okay, so this account has been created, and that account has a weak password. Secondly, we need to allow this account to be remote login to the Windows. For Windows, remote login is the remote desktop service. So we needed to, we have done this firewall stuff. We need to enable remote desktop on the Windows machine. So it will enable this remote desktop service and accept user login. here we show the Windows 7, but I'm using Windows 10. So let me, oh, shoot. Remote desktop. Remote desktop setting. So right now it's enabled. Some may be disabled. Enabled user account. So select a user account that can remote access. So you not only need to enable remote desktop, you should also configure the Windows 10 and Windows 7. Their configuration here is slightly different, but it's the principle is same. Once you enable this remote desktop, you should also check this select user that can remote access. So IE user already has access. So we need to add the new account we just created to the list of the users that allow remote desktop. So we add the user. Username is CIS6395. So let me check the name. So, okay, so this is valid name. It's, we just click, what's the advanced means? Okay, I don't think we need to change the advanced. So, okay. So you can see it add here, then click OK. Then in that case, this new account, the user can remote log in without problem. What I showed here is for for Windows 7, you do this configuration. But of course, you need to make sure that your remote desktop service is open to the outside. You can use Nmap to find whether that is open or not. Like Nmap, I use -f 10.0.2. I think my Windows is IP address. My Windows IP address is 2.15. So I do fast scan to the Windows. So you can see this 3389 is open. So the remote desktop is open. And remember, I have already added this CIS6395 user account into the list, allowed list for the remote desktop service. I've already opened the remote desktop service. Next is verify whether you can actually remote connect to that remote desktop. On Linux, you can remote desktop connect to a Windows machine. It's the program is called rdesktop remote desktop, and you put the IP address. And it will first give you a warning. The certificate is not trusted for the system. Of course, my Windows machine doesn't have any certificate. So do you trust this? So I will of course say yes. Oh, failed to initial NLA. NLA is this so-called NLA authentication. I need to disable this NLA authentication first. Let me see. Let me try this. Remote desktop connect the username and computer. No, it's not. So Yeah, so this one you need to disable. You need to disable this network level authentication to connect. Windows enabled this option, trying to make it more secure. I don't know the exact detail about this network level authentication, but network level authentication just means remote user cannot simply just use a password to log in. They need to use more than a password to log in. So it needs some other authentication. If you want to see the reason, you can click here, and you can see the reason given by Microsoft. Why this is the case? Why it uses this NLA? So I need to disable this. If you allow connection without NLA, you are exposing your computer to potential security risk. Proceed anyway. So in this way, a remote user can simply log in by using a username and password. NLA, you require some additional level of authentication. If you want to know more, you can check remote desktop NLA authentication and to see why it needed this and what is NLA. For example, you can go to Wikipedia to see what is NLA or network level authentication, and why remote desktop is used. So you can check this page, the Wikipedia page, to see that. But for this attack to go through, we need the remote desktop connection to disable this NLA authentication. Basically, when you enable remote desktop, you need to click this advanced setting and disable that. Then we can verify our desktop connect. You can see it's connecting to this Windows machine. Before you actually connect, you probably need to log out, because if I use this CIS6395 password ABC123, you can see the password, and it shows another user is signed in. If continue, they will be discontinued. Do you want to sign in anyway? And on your Windows machine, remember right now, my Windows VM I'm still using as IE user. Remember, this user account is IE user. So if I say yes, it's a wait for IE user to respond. So immediately here will tell you that someone is connecting to your computer. Okay to disconnect your session. So then I'm logging out of the IE user. So if you actually do a remote desktop attack, you want to make sure that that computer, there's no user using that computer. Otherwise, the user will see that warning message. They will immediately know that someone is connecting to my computer. But that's another issue for Windows. Windows by itself is actually a single user computer. So even it supports remote desktop connection, it cannot support multiple users using the same Windows at the same time. It's not like Linux machine. You can have multiple users using the same Linux machine at the same time. But Windows is different. So if I go to this, you can see this is my Kali Linux, this is our desktop. So I have already logged in to this Windows virtual machine. So let me sign out. So after this signing out correctly, so it means that, well, these are remote desktop I have enabled, the password, the user account, they are all successful. So we have finished the preparation. Now we can start to do this password cracking attack. So here is the R desktop. You need to disable this NLA authentication. So the first tool we want to try is called Hydra. So this is a attacking tool that is included in Kali Linux. For password cracking, generally speaking, there are two modes of password cracking. One is offline password cracking, another is online password cracking. Hydra is online password cracking tools. Offline password cracking just means once attacker compromises a machine, attacker download the password file, then download the password file to their own computer. Then they can use the cracking software, try to find password for every account in that password file. So that's offline password cracking. Online password cracking just means attacker repeatedly try to log in to a remote service, like this remote desktop, or try to remote log in to SSH, try to remote log in to, for example, to Wi-Fi access point, try different password. So for any kind of service that accept user login attempt, they could be the target for the online password cracking attack. So give a username and give a password dictionary. Then Hydra will find out the password one by one. The Hydra use the dictionary, password dictionary. So there are many dictionary in Kali Linux. So we will use this John the Ripper, this default small password list. This is a small password file. There are many other dictionary under this directory in Kali Linux. So the Hydra use, the basic use is this one. Hydra, this is command line. ST means how many concurrent connections you want to try, because remote server, they may support multiple users concurrently connect to it. For example, if the remote server is a Wi-Fi access point, you want to try different password to connect to Wi-Fi access point, then of course it can accept multiple connections at the same time. If the remote server is a Linux server, like SSH Linux server, it allow 4, 5, 10, or even more users to connect to it at the same time. So -t, you can say -t equals 10. Then that means Hydra will try 10 different passwords concurrently trying to connect to the server. But for remote desktop service, remember remote desktop service for Windows. Windows is a single user computer. So it doesn't support multiple users to connect to the same Windows computer at the same time. So we need to specify that concurrent connection is only one. So we try one connection at a time. If you try multiple connections at the same time, maybe none of them will be successful. SV will show each attempt. Basically, it will show you which password has tried but failed, which password has tried and failed. So we can see this process. -L is a username. What username you want to try? -P supply this dictionary file. So this is dictionary file. Then after that is a target IP address or domain name. Then what's the service you want to try this online password cracking? Hydra has put in a lot of remote login service, like a remote desktop or FTP connection, or this Wi-Fi access point password connection, or like a SSH server connection. So it has built in a lot of remote login module. So you need to tell Hydra what remote login module you are using for this password connection. So RDP is a remote desktop service. But in order to make this successful, we need to make sure the target machine, the Windows machine, does not have any user using it. Otherwise, remote desktop, remember, remote desktop cannot be successful if that computer is currently in use. So this is the Windows computer, the Windows VM. Right now, it's every user, both users are logged out. In the Kali Linux, we try this Hydra -T1. If you don't know the command line, you can type -H means help. Then it will tell you how you can use Hydra. These are commands. -T1 -V means show the any password you have tried. So we can see L username 6395. -T means the password dictionary list. So let's see what's the password dictionary list. So under this USR share John, we have this file password.lst. So if you see this file, you can see that, well, this file has many comments at the beginning just to show what this is. Then after that, every line is a potential password. You can see this ABC123 is here. Because I don't want to demonstrate to take too long, so I choose a weak password that is at the beginning of this dictionary list. This dictionary has a lot of comments. When you try Hydra, every line is treated as password. So clearly these comments, they are not a valid password, so they will waste some time. So I will not directly use this. I will simply copy this password to the root directory. Oh, no. Copy it to root directory. So this password here, I will first remove this the top this comment line. It's a Control K in Pickle. Remember this Control K is cut. So I'm using Control K to cut all the comments. Then save it. Now you can see this password list. It's start. Remember here is empty. So some accounts, their password is empty. So empty is a valid password for many default accounts. So it is here as well. So we have prepared a password file. So we just use this this one. Then the remote IP address, Kali link, my Windows machine is this, and the service is RDP. So we can see the result. You can see that it's try the password, and first, so they are overall, in that dictionary list, they are overall 35, 46 passwords. So it's a small dictionary list. And this password have tried, this password tried. And until here, pass, this number 8 password tried. It showed this color. It showed login password. So valid password has found. Then Hydra just stopped. So it's because one valid password has found, so Hydra stopped its running. So we know this remote user has this password ABC123. So that's how you use Hydra. Clearly, you can see that Hydra will generate this login attempt in very regularly, like once in every, like for my case, once in every maybe 300 to 400 milliseconds, try a password. Here is show the child zero because I'm using only one connection. If you try like 5 concurrent connection, then it will display which child process try that password. If you say -T5, then you will Hydra will generate 5 child process to do this password trying concurrently. So this is Hydra. It finds the password. Of course, if the password is later in the list, then it will try it for a long time. Remember, this dictionary has more than 3,000 passwords. So we try that. So we can try another service. For example, for the metasploitable Linux, we can try this SSH service. Again, we need to create a vulnerable account on the metasploitable Linux. So suppose in Linux, you can create an account using this command. If you log in as a root, but remember in metasploitable Linux, your default login name is MSF admin. Even though it has the root privilege, it's not a root account. So you cannot create a user account directly. So you need to use this command, the sudo user add to create account. Then password to add a password. So let's do that. I think we still have time. If I don't want to run sudo every time, I will just sudo su to change to the root password, to the root account. So I will just use user add 6395. Password 6395. So user add basically add that user account. Password will create a password for that. So first password, let me see what password choose. For example, 1234. Let me use that password. 1234. 1234. So the password has been created. If you want to know whether this account has been created, you go to the etc directory. You can see this password file. You can see that there are many system accounts, but they are not remote login accounts. You can see MS admin account. You can also see this CIS6395 is at the bottom. You remember at the bottom of the password file, it showed that, but in Linux, the password file actually does not have the password. The actual password is in this so-called shadow file. So this is CIS6395 account. The actual password is saved in the last line in this shadow file. The password is not saved by itself. Password saved as a hash value of the password. So all the computing system, they don't save the password directly on their computer because that's too vulnerable. They only save the hash value of the password. So when a user log in, the operating system calculates the hash value for the user input password. And if the hash value match with the hash value saved in the password file, then the operating system knows that the user have put in the correct password. So that's how the password is saved in operating system. So now we have created that, and we can again, you need to test whether this account has been created successfully or not. This is metasploitable Linux is 2.5. So let's confine to SSH to that metasploitable Linux 2.5. So SSH, you use this way to do SSH. Use a name at the remote IP address. Here, the warning basically show cannot be established because the metasploitable Linux doesn't have a valid certificate. So you have to trust the first connection. Yes. So it needs password 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can see that we have logged in using this new account. So this new account has been created successfully. So now we can try the password cracking, online password cracking to do that. Here, we can try multiple concurrent connections because SSH support multiple users to connect to it at the same time. So you can try like a 4 concurrent connection or even 10 concurrent connection. So we will just use that. This is a 2.5 and SSH service. We still use this password. The username is still your CIS6395. So let's try like 5 or 6 concurrent connection. Concurrent connection does not mean the more the better. The more concurrent connection, you can try the password faster because you can try like 10 passwords at a time. Because every password, when you send to the server needs time to respond. So that takes some time. If you try it one by one, you go through the dictionary, take a longer time. If you try 10 passwords at one time, you will try it faster. But if you try too much concurrent connection, then maybe the server doesn't have the resource to respond to all the concurrent connection. Then some of those connections will be failed because the server don't have the resource to respond to verify that password. Then if you try like 20 concurrent connection, 40 concurrent connection, the real password may missed, may overlooked. Then you may not find the valid password. So let's try 6 concurrent connection. You can see 6, 1 flash, 6, another flash, another 6. So this one find the password 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see this child 0, child 1, child 2, child 3, child 4, child 5. So there are overall 6 child try the password concurrently. And it find the password. If I try like 20 concurrent connection, then I may not find the password. Oh, it still find password. So SSH is very reliable. So even though you are trying many concurrent connections, it's still possible to finish. So this one still fine. But if you try too many concurrent connections, then maybe the real one may be overlooked and you may not find it. So you need to choose a good number, not too small to slow down the speed, but not too fast to make the server don't have the resource to respond. Another password cracking tool is called uncrack. It's also included in Kali Linux. Its usage is similar to Hydra, but I think uncrack is not as good as Hydra because Hydra is very reliable. Every time it can find the password, but uncrack sometimes it will miss that password. Another problem is that uncrack it doesn't show your process. For Hydra, you can see which password has been tried, which password has been tried. So you know what's the running process. Uncrack, it just hang there until it finds the password, it will tell you. Otherwise, it's just running forever without any response. So that is one issue. There are some other online password cracking, like in Kali Linux, there is another one called Medusa, M-E-D-U-S-A. It's similar to Hydra and uncrack, but we will not try that. Well, I don't have time, but next time I will show uncrack, but the usage is very similar. Okay, I will stop here and see you next Monday. I will update the slides on the web course because these slides I have updated. You can download the new lecture slides. Okay, that's all for today's class.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.